A new and mysterious challenge was added to Diablo 2 in 2005. 19 years later, players are taking turns obliterating that challenge faster than ever. The world record speedrun time for Uber Tristram has changed hands rapidly in recent history. But what is this challenge, and what's going on? All the way back in patch 111, Blizzard added a rather ominous challenge into the game. Nowadays, D2 players recognize this addition as Uber Tristram, but the journey of unveiling this mystery has been all but lost in the sands of time. Only veteran players remember the tale. The patch notes provided barely any clues, but players started noticing some rather weird things in-game. They began to realize that certain mini-bosses would drop keys. The Countess dropped terror keys, the Summoner hate, and Neelathok dropped the destruction key. At first, people had no idea what to do with these seemingly useless items, but eventually, players figured out if you took each of these keys and imbued them in the Horadric Cube, a secret portal would open. But none of these early players were ready for what was waiting on the other side.
Looking for Bill.
Some players were immediately met with a terrible fate and slain instantly by an Uber version of Duriel, the Act 2 boss. Other players found a powerful version of Iswal waiting to delete their character, and some lucky players would even stumble upon an entirely new villain, Lilith. All of these new monsters were extremely dangerous, and most of the popular builds at the time couldn't hold a candle to them. It was clear that the community would need to find a different answer for this challenge. Now, I did say most builds couldn't handle these bosses. There was one build in particular that was popular only in PvP at the time. That build was about to have a whole new purpose. The Smiter could utilize all of the melee mechanics but focus his attack, and with a little bit of crushing blow, those massive life totals on these new bosses weren't so daunting anymore. And just like that, a new PVM build was immortalized in the history books of Diablo 2. But that wasn't the end of this new challenge. Players realized that you could guarantee a fight with each of these bosses if you used 3 sets of keys in the same game. And after defeating each of these dangerous bosses, they would drop yet another puzzle piece. This time, it didn't take players long to find out that imbuing those in the Horadric Cube would open up yet another portal and an even greater challenge. Upon entering this 4th portal, players were met by Mephisto, Baal, and Diablo all at once, and you best believe these bosses were even stronger than the ones before. Each of them summoned endless masses of powerful minions capable of dealing every type of damage in the game. To make things worse, Mephisto was even imbued with the Conviction aura, which tore down your character's resistances by 125%, a devastating surprise to unsuspecting players. Teams of people joined together to strategize ways to defeat these new primevals, but eventually, with some additional tweaking, the Smiter was able to get the job done, and it quickly became the true hero of this new journey. The community loved solving this new mystery, and it was rewarding in so many ways. And I do mean rewarding. Imagine the surprise of the first player to defeat the final boss in Uber Tristram, all to find the Hellfire Torch at their feet. This was the most powerful item to ever be introduced into the game. Alongside it, they found another mysterious item, the Standard of Heroes. To this day, the purpose of this second item is still unknown. The hype for Uber Tristram didn't die down for another 5 years, and you're not gonna believe the reason why. And while I tell you about this nasty exploit, I'll also tell you about G2A, the best place to buy game keys and gift cards online. From 2005 to 2010, players were able to level up faster than they ever could before. The monsters in Uber Tristram were level 110. In any other area of the game, the maximum level of any regular monster caps out at 85. this was unquestionably the best place to level in the entire game. And while G-Ubers was the best place for that, G2A is the best place to find discounts on our favorite gaming titles. They've even got some nasty prices for the new Elden Ring DLC from some very reputable sellers. But much like any game that gets discounted like this, these prices likely won't be around for long. People snatch these up. The process took a team of 3 players to pull off. 2 Hammerdins and a Necro. The Dins would spin hammers and the Necro would cast Bone Wall, which triggered something pretty insane. Regardless of where Mephisto was in the level, he'd immediately start casting minions on top of the Hammerdins as soon as the Necro cast Bone Wall. And then, Leechers could sit safely on the side, gaining massive levels at a breakneck pace. The team would return to town every once in a while, just so that the game didn't crash. This went down in history as the most notorious and hyper-efficient way to reach level 99, even to this day. Thanks to G2A for sponsoring this. I have personally favorited this site and check it before buying any game. Check it out for yourself and let me know what you think. Use my link below so they know who sent you. It helps support the channel and it also helps support your wallet. Knowing how intense the Uber Tristram journey really was, imagine knowing at the time that a decade later, people would be obliterating that challenge in speedruns. The 1 to Ubers category, where someone goes from level 1 to defeating all of the Uber bosses, is one of the more popular categories nowadays. It started gaining traction back on the original version of D2, Lord of Destruction, but that wasn't the only Ubers category to pop up during that time. Towards the end of 2020, and at the request of the community, we started speedrunning Uber Tristram with decked-out characters on this channel. The goal was to get to the bottom of just how fast this endgame challenge could be conquered. Early runs weren't anything special. They started out with the very same smiter build that became legend in its own right. The builds focused more on survivability and finishing the run consistently, but eventually, towards the end of the LOD era, these builds started getting a bit more competitive and far more risky. Around that time, a player by the name of Master Otis began to theorycraft builds that threw caution to the wind. This was in the spirit of achieving the quickest time possible. So while piloting Master Otis's build, the Gavel Smiter, a time of 1 minute and 13 seconds was achieved. It was thought that this time likely wouldn't be beaten when the game was remastered in 2021. That was mainly because of the loading screens that now existed when entering every portal. That belief would turn out to be very wrong. With the remake of Diablo 2, interest in Uber Tristram speedrunning began to take off. Players like Skulm kicked off the new era by completing runs not only on the Smiter, but also on other classes such as the Necro, a pioneering move which was really the start of the community focusing on the top times from each class. Dobrunsky also showcased some Uber Tristram speedruns with classes that were a little over-tweaked in the early patches of D2R.
This build melts Ubers faster than I have ever seen before. Mephisto's down! Boom!
But even through the era of early glitches and class diversification, it didn't seem like any class would ever be able to compete with the Smiter when it came to setting the fastest possible time. That was until Blizzard announced a new addition to the Runeword lineup, Mosaic. This new item, along with some inherent changes to the martial arts skill tree, got the gears turning in the community. Could a new class become king of the Uber Tristram speedrun? Thanks to the diligent work of a player by the name of Lucky Luciano, everyone soon found out.
It's the run, boys. It's the run! 54 seconds! Holy crap!
Not only had Lucky Luciano beaten the LOD record, he was the first player to break the 1 minute barrier in any Uber Tristram speedrun. Cause to celebrate for sure, but this run had the potential to haunt the community forever. With the category gaining popularity, some official guidelines were implemented after that. This sort of ended the Wild West era of early Uber runs. While runs were initially done on Battle.net to stay above reproach, more credence was given to single-player runs with these. Additionally, players could now pick a map seed and circumnavigate a ton of annoying RNG from online runs. While some big barriers came down, others went up. Prior to this, nearly every run, including Lucky's, involved players pre-buffing their characters. Sometimes it was as simple as casting battle orders, but other times, Pre-buffing processes could take minutes to pull off, but were essential to the completion of the run. In light of this, pre-buffing would now be counted in the time. Would this solidify Lucky's run as the fastest time ever in the books? Or was it possible to complete this challenge even faster? A player by the name of Gotenheim burst onto the scene, playing various classes for this category, and playing them well. While theory crafting with Master Otis, he would make a big statement when he set a world record time on the Necro using a build that most people considered useless. Poison Dagger Necros have historically been a laughable build, but Gotenheim proved that this build might actually have a purpose. Gotenheim might have been creative, but the question remained. Did he have what it took to break Lucky's 54-second record without pre-buffing? He would soon answer that very question on an entirely new class. Up until this point, the variation in top times had taken place over the course of many patches and multiple years of grinding. But what I'm about to tell you took place over the course of 4 days. Gotenheim was the first player to achieve a world record time on an Amazon. This was incredible, but unfortunately, this Amazonian era of dominance lasted merely a few hours.
Holy that had to be it.
In a sort of poetic form of karmic justice, the Gavel Smiter had come full circle and once again achieved the fastest time in history. This Gavel Smiter run got the attention of none other than Lucky Luciano himself. Not to be outdone by new rules, new builds, and certainly not the Gavel Smiter. After only 1 day, Lucky was able to do this. Lucky was able to not only reclaim the world record, but also to break a barrier once again. This one would surely stand for a long time. Or would it? Lucky's trusty build was good, but there's a bit of a problem with it. Using one charge on Phoenix Strike causes meteors to drop on your target. These procs are a bit slow to come down, but devastating when they do. They're not only devastating to the target, but they're also devastating to your graphics card, as we can see from some of the frame drops in Lucky's run. While this isn't a huge window of opportunity for improvement, Gotenheim would return to try to capitalize on it. Within a couple of days, Gotenheim was able to shave another 3 seconds off from the top time by using 2 charges on Phoenix Strike, proccing lightning instead of meteors. And this is where the top time stands today, but who knows for how long. The mystery introduced in patch 111 of Diablo 2 would change the game forever. From igniting a sense of adventure and discovery back then, to fueling creativity in players to this day. It's hard to pinpoint exactly why so many fans of this franchise cite this game as the best one in the series, but it's likely that this mystery had at least something to do with it. Thanks for watching.